On the bottom left, right actually, you see the swan with some glasses. This is, yeah, just a fun little thing that I made to commemorate the cooperation. But let's talk about me for a second. I am Max, or Maximilan, and I am the maintainer of the Brille24 shops, and I've been working with the company for 5 years. And most of you probably know me by my profile picture and my online username, because I'm also one of the contributors to the Sylius project. So, what about Brille24? Brille24 is an online optician, and it has 7 shops, one for the general Europe-wide operations, then for Spain one, for Portugal one, for France, Belgium, Netherlands, and the big one in Germany. In 2001 we merged with 4Care, and together we sport a yearly turnover of 50 million euros and 150 employees. And that also brings me to the Symphony awareness, the developer team, who at the beginning of the migration already was familiar with Symphony because our back office system was built in Symphony, and we had a lot of Magento 1 knowledge because we had a Magento 1 certified developer. So let's have a look at the tech stack before the migration. I probably need to explain this because it's quite a huge diagram. We have 3 layers. The first one is the customer-facing layer, which in this case consists of 3 shops. In the first case, it is the optician portal, which is a B2B shop, which exports it to the back office system, and then the back office system takes care of the factory. And yeah, that's basically the main flow. And the problem with this approach is that if you have multiple systems dealing with product data, for example, multiple shops and multiple back office systems, you have to have a way to centralize the product data, because otherwise, in our case, catalog management has to manage the products in 3 different systems. So this was just a mess overall. So, why did we decide to migrate away from Magento? Well, the first reason that we migrated away was Magento 1 support was running out. So the most obvious solution would be to have Magento 2. But the problem with this is when we tried migrating shops, Magento 2 was still in its early development, and it was just recently purchased by Adobe. So code was still in a big refactoring. And the thing that I like to bring up there is we tried to migrate the attribute structure from the Magento 1 shop to the Magento 2 shop. And 2 weeks later, even with the help of the Magento 1 certified developers, we still didn't get anywhere. So yeah, we decided to scratch that and completely revamp the tech stack, which also then allowed us to introduce new technologies like Docker or GitLab, and AWS for deployment, because before that it was just also deploying on bare metal, basically. So the next question would be, why did we choose Sylius? Well, first of all, Sylius has a very great headless approach, which was essential for us, because we didn't only want to have one shop running, but also the B2B optician portal, and we also thought about changing back office systems. So having it headless and only having the logic there would be the most optimal solution. And of course, another factor was flexibility, because as you can imagine, glasses are quite a complex product, so having a lot of customization options in terms of products and checkout and all the order processing was quite nice. From a technical point of view, it's also great that it is a tested and a robust system, because having a test infrastructure already in place makes it easier for developers to write new tests and keep the system tested and robust. And since we didn't only want to have Sylius, but we also needed a CMS and a product information management system. We asked Sylius for recommendations, and they gave us Zulu as the as the content management system, and Akineo as the PIM solution, which are both also based on Symfony. This meant in this case that any developer could switch to any project at any time, theoretically. But yeah, that was basically the idea, to migrate our whole tech stack to basically Symfony. And at this moment, I should also mention that we are one of Sylius's Plus customers. Why? Of course, it's nice to have direct contact to the developers for problem solving and having influence on the roadmap. We also use the RBAC bundle, in this case mostly for menu decluttering, because we have a giant menu and having parts of it being hidden is quite nice. And we also use the return request and the returns management system, so we didn't implement that ourselves. So, nope, that's one slide too much. So what's the plan on the migration? The plan was basically to build a prototype to see if it was the right solution for us. And we started that in August of 2018. And then the first shop actually 2 years later. This is the smallest shop of our conglomerate, so that's the one we went with. A few months later, we migrated the next shop, and then in June 2021, we migrated Brille24 as the big shop. With a lot of waffles and Polish French fries, we started developing this Belgian French fries. We developed this basically, and now the team is consisting of 11 people, so we didn't stay at 3. So how do we start? Well, first of all, we were setting up everything, like a Sylius 1.2 and a Zulu 2.0 version of the shop, and started getting work on the product, because the customer has to see what they can buy. And in this case, we went for Elasticsearch as the solution for the listing, because of the fact that we wanted facade navigation, which was in this case important. And luckily there's already a plugin for this by the Bitback guys, and we also grabbed the wishlist plugin from there as well, since we were already on the shop. And this was basically the product structure we went for. Products in here are associated not by product variant relations, but by product association. This was one of the major stupid things that we did, because in Magento the products also weren't really connected, so we didn't really bother cleaning up the product data structure. But talking about glasses, we have to actually take a look how complicated they are and how they work. In our shop, the glasses consist of 2 parts, namely the frame, which is just the plastic that holds the lenses in front of your eyes, and the lenses itself. And those lenses are actually configured by those, or at least a superset of those options. And those are called lens values, which just describe the shape of your eye and how good you can see. And the problem is, if you try to generate a product or something for every variant, you end up with over 1 million variants, which, fun fact on the side, we tried. The admin panel was fine, the listing page on Sylius was also fine, but the product detail page didn't want to load. Of course, because it has to list all the variants. So that wasn't really the best approach. So we took some, let's call it inspiration, from Magento, who has customizable options, which basically allows to attach a price to an option of the product. So for example, you can select the lens type on the right, and depending on which value you choose, you just get an additional 40 euros added onto your price of the base frame, or another 140 euros. So this basically just reduces to a few options that have additional pricing, and this is of course much easier to handle than a million variants for every product. And since this isn't really anything special, and Magento also has it, we thought about developing this as a plugin, and that's what the link leads to. This is actually a community plugin. It's called Sylius Custom Options. Just click on a link. Yeah, so, exactly. Slides will probably be available afterwards. So then after the customer knows how to, what to buy and how to configure the product, we need to get him through checkout. And in this case, checkout and cart actually are already implemented in Sylius. In our case, this wasn't done with the API platform integration because back then, in the olden days, it didn't exist. So our best solution was the shop API plugin, which we then discovered quite a few shortcomings from, and that's why we got involved with the project and ended up as a maintainer because we had to do some heavy refactoring and helping and on that front. The only thing that this plugin didn't do was integrating payment providers. The problem there is every payment provider is different, so there isn't really any general solution that you can really offer inside of a general API. So in our case, we went with two payment providers, one being Adyen, which just handles all of the rest, and one being PayPal, because we also had to integrate with the Dutch and Belgium and French payment systems. So Adyen as a basically payment management system was quite a good choice. So this solves the shop problem, but we still have the product data issue. So catalog management has to manage product data everywhere. So for this, we also found a solution. In this case, of course, I already said we are using a PIM, but in our case, we also use a queue system to notify systems about changed product data. So let's have a look at how this works. For example, you create, update, or do whatever in the PIM, and the PIM basically says, hey, I have an update for the, I don't know, brown glasses or something, and then puts a message on the queue, and everybody who wants to know, for example, the Sylius or the DTS or the back office system can then consume the message and either ignore the update or just process it however they want. And that's basically all the magic, since we didn't really work with product variants and so on. So let's have a look at the new product structure, the new stack structure, the new stack. Much more simple, as you can probably tell. On the left, we have the internationals with all of their URLs. On the right, we have Brille24. In the middle, we have a shared product data storage that is the Elasticsearch. This Elasticsearch is populated by Sylius with, in this case, the Elasticsearch bundle. And then the shops only just read this. And the customer service then can access Sylius and has all the information in one place. This also mitigates the fact that we have to have two Magentos, because now Sylius has a multi-shop or a multi-language support, so we can do all of that in one system. And catalog management only needs to worry about Akineo, and then the RabbitMQ pushes it to Sylius. Sylius populates the Elasticsearch. Everybody's happy. Back office system, we don't care. It's an API. The question is, there's one thing missing from this picture. Do you know what it is? It starts with M. It's Magento, correct? Because we, of course... Thanks for the optimism. Of course, we couldn't just tell Magento to, basically stop producing orders and stuff like this. So we did basically have a huge cutoff because we didn't really migrate orders, because order structure from Magento and Sylius is probably too different to even try. So what we did is, since the customer still needs to access orders to view and return them, we implemented only a viewing API in Sylius, in Magento, for everything that we need in Sylius. So we can just basically view the data, but there's no write process to it. Everything that's need to be written, like return requests have to be manually filed through the phone, and then the customer service can access it. The problem with saying there is no migration is that if you tell the marketing we're going to drop all the customers, they don't like that. So we actually had to migrate customers, which in our case wasn't that bad. It was about, I think, 1 million customers that have accrued over the shops over the years. So yeah. And here we actually see that we have a return policy that you can't return products that are older than 2 years. So this means that after 2 years we can completely disconnect Magento because customers can't return the orders. And if they want to see their orders, they have to call or mail the customer service. But the problem with customers is address data. For everybody who has ever dealt with address data, they know what part of the talk is coming. Address data is a pain in the butt. And the problem is we have a lot of them. In this case, also in orders of million. And to make the problem even worse, Magento is a legacy system. It has been in use for 10 years, which probably also went through some iterations of the addresses, field switching, UI changes. So address data was everywhere and never really clean. So to make the problem even worse, we also wanted to address with a new shop structure the problem that the street and the house number should be separated, because the German post office likes their house numbers and streets to be separated. So we also thought, let's tackle that as well. Our first solution to that was to ask Sylius for this, because this sounds like a feature that more than one shop could need. And they were like, hell no. That's way too complicated. So yeah, we did it on our own. In our case, the solution we opted for was a package that claimed to get most of it done with regular expression, and the rest we just put in a comma for the address and ask the customer to update it the next time they see it. And we also have another thing to take into account, which is pickup station data, which is just one ID for the pickup station. And the problem with this is, since, as I said, legacy system, the ID was once in the company field, once in the street name. So yeah, also all over the place. But for this, there is actually a solution called Addressware, which is an address sanitizing and validation service. And most of the pickup station data could be validated and cleaned up with Addressware. The problem is this is expensive, obviously, for the international shops. So for the international shops, we didn't really do any cleanup of the addresses. And yeah, the future solution for this would be to implement Google Places API into the checkout, which then, of course, will prevent stupid addresses from coming in, but still doesn't really fix the old addresses. That's something that we'll have to live with in this case. So, what did we learn from this migration? First of all, I split this up in 2 parts. The first one are technology things. The first one is Zulu and its PHP-CR bundle. This is something that they want to drop in the next version because it's complicated. And if you don't start off with a clean structure and a organization in your head how the content in Zulu should be structured, getting it from a disorganized state into a structure that is actually workable is, once again, very hard. And the other one is feature flags are very nice. In this case, this doesn't really mean that you can turn off a feature for all of the shops, but in our case this is even better because we can easily turn off features for one shop. So for example, like the Belgium shop shouldn't have returns, well, just turn it off. So that's one thing that we also implemented, which was more of a coincidence than a planned decision. And the business, I would say, things we learned is planning is better than hindsight, obviously relating to the Zulu thing, because yeah, now we're left with a disorganized array of data in Zulu, and making it extensible is indeed very important, which in our case turns out to be very important, because remember how I said that you could change back office systems? Guess what we did? Well, not really willingly, but yeah, we changed our back office system from the operations management system, which was developed in-house, to Navision, which isn't developed in-house directly. And this was actually quite an easy feat to do, because it's headless. You basically just give them the API documentation and the documentation for the endpoints you didn't document. And yeah, they can just basically query the system, create orders, manage the payments, everything with that. The only thing that we needed to change is the order export, because we switched formats from XML to JSON. And yeah, we also had to expose some of the payment processes to the back office system, so they can mark orders as completed and yeah, something like that. But that wraps up my talk, actually. Thanks for having me, and any questions? Check. Yep.
It was quite interesting solution to use Sulu. Maybe you could tell some details why you choose it, especially to use it in the checkout. It was, I know, quite unusual.
Yes, we chose Sulu mostly because of the recommendation from Sylius. But in our case, checkout and all of the Sylius processes are just regular Symfony pages, so they don't really have anything interacting. The most content-heavy stuff is the listing, which of course has a lot of content in between, and the yeah, the rest of the content, like explaining how glasses work and how prescriptions work. So yeah, the checkout is mostly just pure Symfony and so not really.
It's mostly for the content types, yeah?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Thank you.